Dr. Holt, let's talk about another one of the aspects of the anti-aging triad, stem cells. It seems like a lot of research has been done into that. Talk about what you found in your book that is important, and are some of the restrictions that the government places on stem cells kind of hindering some of the things that we might be able to find.
Well, I touch on the issues, including the moral and ethical challenges that exist in the use of embryonic stem cells. But really, I take a cautiously optimistic approach, because I think overall there may have been reports of stem cell interventions where perhaps the knowledge has transcended really the scientific basis for the statements. And I think we've got certain things that are going on that I get into. I talk about the use of adult stem cells versus embryonic versus newer and more innovative ways of using induced pluripotential cells that are manipulated in the laboratory. And I talk about many of the issues, and I talk somewhat briefly in many areas about cardiovascular health, about reversing neurological disease potentially, spinal cord injury, which of course has been a big challenge. And I talk about all of these areas, but I also get into very contemporary issues based on my own research of having visited internationally stem cell clinics that are operating with stem cell medical tourism, which is a very expanded area of medical practice, because, as you quite rightly pointed out, we've faced a certain degree of limitation based on government regulations in the United States. And, we are perceived as having been very conservative in that regard. And there's no question it may have somewhat stood in the way of US research, which, has been overtaken to some degree in other areas, but we're playing catch up. So, for example, Korea has been very innovative in its approach. We see in the Far East, Singapore, with great research going on. We see the UK as a very dominant influence, and other European countries, including specifically Germany, where there are relatively relaxed regulations in comparison to the US. But in my book, I talk about all of these issues, about appealing to, can we proceed with more innovative research? But in essence, the book is designed to not bore a healthcare practitioner and really be written at a level, mostly, where a healthcare consumer can understand the import and the future of stem cell research, which has a great promise, not only for treating diseased and ailing tissues of the body, but unequivocally, potentially playing a role in longevity promotion. So I talk about the idea of one day we may have stores where we buy off-the-shelf organs produced by scientists in the laboratory, like an auto parts store where we service our geriatric vehicles. And these are all within our reach, certainly within our reach, even though they're concepts that seem futuristic. They're within my book.
But it seems like with stem cells, we're just kind of scratching the surface of the potential. Can you talk a little bit more about, what we could see maybe 10, 20, 30 years down the road in that science?
Oh, definitely. I think we're going to see organs grown with stem cells in the laboratory, where we'll have replacement body parts. And we've already got that to some degree. We'll be growing hearts, we'll be growing, we currently have grown things like bladders, for potential transplantation. There's a whole science there about developing scaffolds and using the correct stem cells to build organs. That's really a form of stem cell engineering. And then, of course, we're going to see the innovation of stem cell use using adult stem cells that are collected and reinfused. And in my book, I go into very carefully the idea that there will be a day when we stand back from the body and we're able to manipulate our own stem cells that exist in the body to form an internal body repair kit. So we'll have science in 20 years where we can give things that will mobilize stem cells, which will home in on diseased tissues, and we can even help the differentiation of the stem cell. And we've got that already in vitro, where we can take a mesenchymal stem cell, bone marrow stem cell, and we can transform it into a neuronal cell, nervous system cell, that secretes dopamine. And we can actually inject that stereotactically into the brain to potentially deal with Parkinson's disease. So these things are all there currently, but I wouldn't say they're in their infancy, but they're a long way from the bedside application in many cases, but not so far away, maybe as close as 5 years. So there's frenetic interest in all of this technology, but you know, conceptually where I've been working is on stem cell mobilization, where you are carrying stem cells in many tissues. Can I move them around your body so that they'll migrate to areas where they're required and do the trick?